I'm a Black woman in my late 50s now, and every December it comes back to me. It doesn't rush in. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives the way winter always does. Quietly, patiently, as if it knows I can't stop it anyway. I'll be standing in a grocery store line, or driving past houses wrapped in lights, or watching snow fall against a dark window, and suddenly I'm back there. Back in the year everything split in two, even though no one could see the crack. People think Christmas is my favorite season. They see the way I decorate, the way I smile, the way I still show up for family gatherings. They assume joy. What they don't see is memory. What they don't see is the way the past breathes beside me every time the air turns cold. Our house was never flashy, but it was full of life, full of effort, full of history. We bought it young, when money was tight and hope was expensive. Every wall held a piece of us. Every repair told a story. We didn't just live there. We grew there. My husband loved that house more than anything. He was a Black man who believed deeply in building something solid in a world that never promised him stability. He worked hard. He came home tired. He believed that if he showed up every day, loved his wife, paid his bills, and kept his word, that would be enough. And for a long time it was. Every December we decorated the same way. White lights outside, soft yellow ones inside, a tall tree in the living room, placed just right, ornaments collected over decades, church events, family trips, small milestones that only mattered to us. Gospel music low in the background, never loud, always steady. That Christmas Eve, everything looked exactly the way it was supposed to. Snow was falling outside, thick and slow, the kind that quiets the world. The fireplace hummed softly. The house smelled like pine and something sweet baking in the oven. My husband kissed my forehead, told me not to stay up too late, and went upstairs to bed. He trusted me. That trust is the part that still tightens my chest. I stayed downstairs, sitting on the couch, staring at the lights reflected in the window, feeling something I didn't yet have words for. Not unhappiness, not anger, just a hollow space where excitement used to live. Marriage changes with time. People don't talk about that honestly enough, especially not in our community. We're taught to be strong, to endure, to be grateful for stability. And we were stable. We loved each other. But love had become quiet, predictable, safe. Somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like a woman and started feeling like a role I performed well. That night, there was a knock at the door. I should have ignored it. It was another Black man, someone I knew, someone familiar enough to feel harmless. He said he was nearby, just stopping by to wish us a Merry Christmas. I stepped outside so I wouldn't wake my husband. The cold hit my face immediately. Snow settled into my hair. Warm light spilled out behind me from the house I was supposed to protect. We talked, too long, about age, about time, about how quickly life passes when you're busy being strong, about how loneliness doesn't always come from being alone. Sometimes it comes from being unseen. I told myself it was just conversation. just standing in the snow, just words. Loneliness is dangerous because it sounds reasonable when you explain it to yourself. At some point, I stopped stepping back. At some point, the space between us closed without either of us naming it. I could hear my own breathing, the faint gospel music drifting from inside, the crackle of the fire I had left unattended. I should have gone back inside. I didn't. I followed him. Even now, that sentence feels heavy in my mouth. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some wild moment of passion. There were no promises, no declarations, no lies about love. Just two people crossing a line they both understood. I slept with him. It was quick. It was quiet. It was almost gentle. And that's what makes it so hard to live with. There was no chaos big enough to blame, no excuse loud enough to hide behind, just a choice. Afterward, I dressed in silence. My hands shook as I buttoned my coat. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked older somehow, smaller, like someone who had already lost something precious and didn't yet understand the cost. I drove home through the snow like nothing had happened. The house was exactly the same when I returned. Lights glowing, tree standing tall, fireplace still warm. I unlocked the door quietly and went upstairs. I slipped into bed beside my husband before the sheets cooled. He reached for me in his sleep, pulled me close, rested his hand on my back the way he always had. That simple, unconscious touch nearly broke me. I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding, waiting for him to wake. He didn't. The next morning was Christmas. Sunlight streamed through the windows, coffee brewed, wrapping paper tore under our hands. We prayed together before opening gifts. My husband smiled at me with complete trust, the kind that comes from a man who believes his home is safe. I carried a secret heavier than anything under that tree. I told myself it was a mistake, a moment, something that didn't define me because it would never happen again. And it didn't, not once. I became more careful, more attentive, more present. I poured myself into being a good wife, a dependable partner, but secrets don't disappear. They settle into your body. They show up in moments you don't expect. When your partner looks at you with pride, when people praise your marriage, when someone calls you strong. Years passed. Then my husband got sick. Not suddenly, slowly. The kind of sickness that steals time, one breath at a time. Doctor visits, hospital rooms, machines humming softly through the night. I sat beside his bed and held his hand while he slept, memorizing the feel of it, knowing something precious was slipping away. He talked a lot near the end, about our life, about our home, about how proud he was of us. He told me he had no regrets, told me he was grateful, told me I had been a good wife. I wanted to confess. I wanted to fall apart and tell him everything, to beg for forgiveness or anger, anything that would make the weight lighter, anything that would give him the choice I had taken from him. But he looked at me with trust that never wavered, and I stayed silent. He died believing I had been faithful. After the funeral, the house felt hollow, too quiet. I folded his clothes slowly, lined up his shoes by the door before finally putting them away. Every object felt like evidence of a truth that would never be spoken. When December came again, I unpacked the decorations alone. Each ornament felt heavier than the last. I held the glass angels and cried for reasons no one could see. Grief is not one thing. It's layers. Love, loss, guilt, regret, all tangled together. I grieved my husband, and I grieved the woman I had been before that night. There was no forgiveness left to ask for, no consequences left to face, just memory. Now, when I see Christmas lights glowing against fresh snow, I don't feel joy the way I once did. I feel the echo of a choice that followed me through a lifetime. This isn't a story about being a bad woman. It's a story about being human, about how one quiet decision can outlive love itself, about how guilt doesn't fade the way people promise. It only grows quieter. I don't tell this story to be forgiven. I tell it because silence can be heavier than truth, and because somewhere someone is standing in the cold, telling herself it's just a moment. It never is.